where'd you get that shirt? I'd be like, Target. That's a short discussion. Yeah.
Ask you, which voice do you find is the hardest to do, and how do you protect your voice?
Yeah, the Emperor Pilaf. Oh my God, back to my show! You know, and it's also his character is pretty intense. He's not a Chris Sabat, another voice actor. He talks about having coffee characters, which are characters you can do while holding a cup of coffee, which means you just sort of talk.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really easy. But Emperor Pilaf, he's like, I'm going to rule the world! You know, so there's like, you have to physicalize it in the booth. You would throw coffee everywhere if you were trying to hold your cup of coffee. They actually have little cup holders in the booth for you to set your coffee in when you need to move. And protecting the voice is like protecting anything in life. You know, you don't do anything without training or warming up. And then you just generally be healthy. Like if you're generally sick, your voice will sound sick. And so it's just about staying healthy. That's the way this video game works. It's like our health. I think it's a video game. I think life is a video game. I think it's worthwhile to look at it as if it were, you know, to say like, if this were an actual video game, what would I consider important? And you'd be like, well, your number one in the video game is health, right? Keep that health up. Sometimes you'll trade health for jumping off of large things, right? Or trying to crush the boss or whatever. So you trade the health, you know, the health and gems. Unfortunately, gems, those are important to you to upgrade. So life, health, and then fun. So that's like the three things for me. Health, being able to eat food. Because 7 children, they're like, Dad, I'm hungry. And I'm like, hungry? I just fed you yesterday. I'm like, but we want to eat every day. And I'm like, you're spoiled. And technically they are. There's a lot of the world that doesn't eat every day. We kind of expect it. But we're like, water and food, we have it all the time. There are places where that's not the case. It's actually better if you don't eat all the time. Yeah?
Star Trek continues. How does it feel to be part of this huge, long legacy? Is there any pressure who you're playing? And you know,
luckily, I'm too stupid to feel the pressure. The last part you were saying something.
Well, it's just, you know, there's a whole legacy, and,
Yes.
and you've got to play to that legacy, but create it yourself.
Yes.
And
Now I'm nervous. No, I've finished filming, so it doesn't weigh on me as much anymore. It didn't weigh on me at the beginning, because at the beginning, Vic was like, hey, Chuck, come to my basement with my cardboard sets. We're going to make it. At least that's what it sounded like he was saying to me. As I heard, let's do a Star Trek thing. And Vic sounds nothing like that. But he was like, let's do it in my basement. And I was like, okay, I'll play your Star Trek play with you, Vic. And I was really dismissive of it, and much in the same way I was dismissive of anime in the beginning. I was like, stupid cartoon. And that just shows you how stupid I was. and sort of self-centered and not seeing the bigger picture a lot of the times, which is the best way to be, to reframe that perspective all the time. But Vic asked me into it, and I thought it was nothing. And then I filmed the vignettes. Oh, but then I remember when it switched was when he was like, do you know who's going to play Scotty? I'm like, no. He's like, Chris Doohan. I was like, what? And then he was like, and guess who Sulu is? I'm like, who? He's like, Grandy Mahara. I was like, this isn't in your basement, is it? Like, no, we're building sets from the original shop drawings. You're in construction. Could you build the sets? I was like, yes, I could build the sets. He's like, could you do it for free? I'm like, yes, money. And, you know, so, and that started that. But yeah, we literally had the shop drawings. And the very first sets Vic built, Vic and I built, we did it in Oklahoma. And then moved those pieces to Georgia where we film now. But then suddenly you start to get enfolded in this Star Trek family, because the fans are really in charge of Star Trek. There's that wall just disappeared from you. There's really no one more in charge of the fandom, the Star Trek fandom, than the fans. And so to get enfolded into that family has been, if you would have told me as a kid that Star Trek fans would, like I was at a kid that I realized things had changed. I went to an anime convention in Dublin. and I'm at a table, and it's in a soccer stadium, a football stadium. So there's, it's just like a giant long, it's at the concierge level of the football stadium. And so it's beautiful, and you can see the field, and it's just, but way down the hall, I see like these kind of older dudes like shuffling up to me with like stuff in their hands, and they're getting closer and closer, and I'm like, those kind of look like anime fans. They were like, Dr. McCoy, and I was like, oh my gosh, like Star Trek Continues has changed my life, and I'm like, oh. And suddenly it's these 3 old Irish dudes like trying to get me to go drinking whiskey with them later that night, which I think I did, I can't remember. But so suddenly to have fans in Ireland who wanted to meet me and wanted me to sign legit, it was what I consider legit. I know that the Star Trek Continues has been very much embraced as legit, but in my mind, it was this old book that I think it was from maybe the 70s. It was like all the schematics of all the ships and they were like, sign here on sick bay, and I was like, really? I'm like, I don't want to. They're like, no, you gotta. So I signed the sick bay section, and at that moment in Dublin like that, I was like, holy crap, I should have been nicer to Vic. And I say that because I'm not in the first 2 episodes. Larry Nemechek is, as Bones, and we filmed the vignettes, and then I got cast in a movie produced by Tom Hanks called Parkland, and I was like, Vic set the schedule, and that booking came in maybe the next day or 2 days later, and I was like, I am so sorry, but we have to change schedules. I've got to do this movie. And he was like, I can't change the schedule. And it was early enough in it that he didn't really know whether or not it was going to be a huge hit. And so I was like, okay. They brought Larry in, and Larry did the first 2 episodes, but there was a lot of support for bringing me back in. And Larry was kind enough to step aside. And then he became like my Star Trek brain. It was so great having these people who know the fandom inside out, just to be able to like they would argue over there'd be like a plate on a control panel, and they'd be like, no, the rim of that plate was 36 centimeters. Like they've got it down to the searching, like Vic, to get the cloth for the sick bay, he had to have it woven in like Morocco. And it was like super, it's like, Chad, you won't believe how expensive this fabric is. I think one of the episode where we added the fabric, the most expensive budget item, I think, was the fabric, because we made them for so cheap. But being enfolded into that universe has been, I never would have dreamt it, and now it's happened, and it's like, and it's great. I'm in it, but I don't have to carry a lot of weight for it. If that makes sense, I don't have to be, some of those guys get hammered a whole bunch. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So with you being in this version of Star Trek, have you had a chance to interact or mingle or anything like that with any actors from any of the other incarnations?
Yeah, Michael Dorn, met him a couple of times, and he also contributed to the series. I've met Robert before. We've been at conventions together. A lot of it is like in the, it's like a cafeteria. The green room at the Comic-Con sometimes will be like a cafeteria. And lunch comes, and you're in line next to, I don't know, pick someone. Yeah, you're in line next to Vic. You're in line next to any of the Star Trek royalty, and then it just becomes like a cafeteria in your job. But sometimes you nerd out. Sometimes you totally nerd out. One time I ran into Kate Beckinsale, and I really ran into her. We turned the corner, and I went, oh my gosh! I think my reaction made her laugh, because I was like, oh, you're an alien! She really did. She looked like an alien, not like a human, like an angelic alien of some sort. Which was, I'm good at awkward. I can awkward when I need to. Yeah.
Do you ever get interactions based, more weird interactions based on your characters, like say Shell Tucker trying to get a dog? Just as a loose example,
Yeah, Shao Tucker, for those of you who don't know, Shao Tucker is probably the most hated anime character of all time. There's a couple other that are up there, but none have made the anime community cry harder than Shao Tucker. Shao Tucker took the most beloved, most adorable character of the series, spoiler, his daughter, and then chimered his daughter with their dog, Alexander. And it came out like this. Kill me! And it destroyed all the anime. And I get fans who will come up to the table and be like, you're a jerk and you need to die! And I'm like, what? And they're like, Shao Tucker ruined our lives. And I'm like, you're very excited about this. I think I was just playing a character. I hate you! Where's your mother? You get like 8-year-olds who like, I'm like, why is your mom letting you watch that? Terribly sad thing. So Shao Tucker is, yeah, I used to have a Nina Alexander plushie that I would keep hidden on the table, and then people would come up and be like, Shao Tucker hurt me, and I was like this. They're like, ah! And they start to cry, and then I laugh. I've destroyed your life.
You don't want to play with his daughter and his dog at the same time.
I know.
Oh, God, the
when you
memes.
can't afford daycare and a dog walker. You just have the one. Yeah, Shao Tucker is probably the only character I get that reaction. There's a lot of people who had the reaction that I did, which when I got cast as the character, I was like, it's awesome! It's totally, oh, this could be great. And then I watched the series and I was like, I'm a horrible person. Why am I so bad? Because not in context, you think it's really funny, and then they put it in context, and you're like, oh, that's why everyone hates me. And they don't really hate. Nobody's ever really hated me. They do it comically. And sometimes some kids will, you know, in the 11 to 14 range, will over-dramatize the pain at it. Nothing against 11 to 14-year-olds. I have 3 of them.
And do you have 3 dogs?
No, I have a dog and 3 cats. I wanted 1 cat.
So just come here.
Yeah, just switch them all. I wanted no cats, and Jessica wanted 1, so we compromised and got 3. I found one. One came as a kitten that was hiding under my car, and she was like, it was like, meow, meow, beautiful little Siamese or Tonkinese, not sure. Meow, meow. She's like, look, and I was bringing groceries in, and I was like, she's like, look at it, it came back, and I was like, oh, she's like, oh, she's got our little 5-year-old at the time, Juno, out there has got these perfect pin curl blonde locks. She's like, it's so cute. I'm like, don't touch it. And I'm like, if you touch it, it'll stay. Just ignore it. And she's like, oh, Juno, what would you name a cat like that? And I was like, I'd name it Trouble. So now the cat's name is Trouble. And Jessica was like, Trouble, a perfect name. I was like, oh, she's got me now. So now we have 3 cats.
If you name it, you're screwed.
I named it, and then I was like, oh, it was brilliant. I just had to be grumpy about it. Just so I could be grumpy about the cat. And it's a really nice cat. But we had 7 kids, 3 cats, and a dog. Lots of lint rollers. Yeah, there's no way to avoid the chaos that comes with that. Yeah.
Have you ever had a role where you had trouble doing it because it was making you laugh too hard?
We did a show called Shin-Chan, and Shin-Chan was Shin-Chan and Hetalia. I probably laughed the most in. Although the humor in Shin-Chan is not for a family-friendly audience. I don't know if the humor in Hetalia is either, although that's a younger person's show. But we had pretty brutal humor, because Hetalia is a show where each character is a country, and they're kind of doing world history through their relationships. And one of the first jokes I wrote, because I wrote the show, one of the first jokes I wrote for the show, the very first episode, big premiere, Funimation executives there, 2,000 people, they sit down to watch it. The very first joke is, so Italy brings a gift to Germany and goes, I got you a present! And Germany goes, what is it, another Jew? The Funimation people were like, oh. And that was like within the first 2 minutes of the episode, so they were like white knuckling the whole. Fortunately, it didn't ever elevate above that. But after that, we got called into a meeting, and they were like, just. We were like, okay. But we told them we were going to shred every country. We kept Japan was doing their dolphin hunt at that time, so we got a dolphin sandwich joke in for Japan eventually. I like that sort of thing. To me, the so long as you're doing good with your humor, I think there is no line. I think you can. There's appropriate and inappropriate audiences. You don't go into a pre-K classroom with that joke. You know, actually they wouldn't get it. They'd be like, why? And then you'd have to explain. Once upon a time, in Deutschland. Wow, that was a dark joke too. I'm trying to figure out how to strike that. Like, how can I be dark but family friendly?
How do you pay?
Do what?
How do you pay them?
How do I what?
Oh, sure.
I'm
dark. It's an oven kill.
I got it. Yeah.
How do you find yourself jumping back, as far as voice work is concerned, if you haven't done a character, even in a couple of months or even a year, how do you find yourself jumping right back into, or what kind of preparation goes back into getting back into the voice so that it's on par with maybe a prior season?
Yeah, that's important. Like Dragon Ball, and then Dragon Ball Z, and then Dragon Ball Kai, and now Dragon Ball, then the movies, and then Dragon Ball Super. Like Dragon Ball we were done with it, and then they did Kai, and we're like, oh, we're back in it, and then we did it again, and then it was done for a long time, and then the movies came in, and we were like Emperor Pilaf came back, and I was like, oh my gosh, Emperor Pilaf, how do I? But luckily, Emperor Pilaf is one of those ones that a lot of times kids will come up to the table and be like, I do a great Goku, and I'll be like, oh, that's awesome. But if you want to be a voice actor, doing a good imitation is not as useful as doing a bad imitation. So my Emperor Pilaf is my best bad imitation of Edith Bunker from All in the Family. Ow, Archie! Ah. So, yeah, Emperor Pilaf is really like a 60-year-old woman from Queens. So, yeah, he was easier to get back into. But of course, we age. I'm now 46. I started when I was 26. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. I can't believe I've been with these characters for 20 years. It seems impossible. But you age, and so we kind of made a choice with Super that no one was going to really try to sound younger. We were just going to portray the characters as they always have been. I mean, Sean Schimmel, to some degree with Goku, has to keep himself in that range, that tone, that pitch. But for me and my characters, that doesn't really matter. It's the guys who do those tenor characters, the sort of boy hero characters that, like Vic and Todd and Sean, that's a tough thing to maintain. They actually have to take care of their voice. I do not. My voice sounds, I have a very hearty voice, or the way my voice is pitched and ranged. I can grind. It's like an old Ford truck. I can just keep grinding it into the dirt until the wheels fall off. Hopefully, let's say that right in the middle of that sentence, until the wheels. God, it's gone forever. Yeah.
With the voice acting, do you have to do a lot of different voices in one kind of recording session, or how does that work?
Typically, no. Typically, you're just doing the one voice, unless you're doing what's called a Walla session, which is with all actors. And so they'll have like 4 actors. And it's when the director has like background noise he's got to fill in, or like he's got 20 characters and they each have 2 lines. They'll bring 4 or 5 guys in and have them each do 4 or 5 different characters. And so then you have to switch it up. Or the way they book you, you'll be going from show to show to show in one day, and so you'll have to switch those characters up. And sometimes they'll be mindful of sometimes they have to be mindful that this is his screamy character, so let's put that at the end of the day. It's the same way they do video game voicing, because video games typically have a lot of ha, you know, like punching and kicking and fighting and screaming and dying, all the things that are just lovely for your voice. And they'll put all those at the end of the session, and you'll do all the sort of regular reactions and voices on the front end. Yeah.
What's the hardest part?
Booking the jobs. Yeah, for sure. Like continuing to work. I'm lucky that I'm in a place where when you're a vet, I can't believe I'm a veteran, I still feel like a kid, but when you're a veteran voice actor, you still have to work at it. You don't have to work as hard as someone who's new. So like booking the jobs is probably the hardest part. As far as the actual like voiceover session, it's like any acting. There is a nervousness, because we do, when you're acting, you're doing one of the most stressful things you can do to the human body. The studies they've done is that landing an aircraft on an aircraft carrier at night in the middle of the ocean, most stressful job in the universe. Right underneath that, number 2, is standing up in front of a group of people and talking. We're talking about, you know, cortisol reaction, the adrenal reaction, the temperature, the skin, you know, so they did all the measurements. So when you get up for any performance, you have to manage the nerves that come along with it. And any of us do, and we do it as, you know, what's interesting, we start like kindergartners, we're like, get up in front of the class, Billy, and Billy's like, ah, because he's terrified. That's because his adrenal system is telling him to like run, kill, and we really don't want Billy doing that. But we don't train people how to speak in front of groups or how to manage the anxiety that comes along with that. And yet it's so important to be able to talk in front of groups of people. My recommendation to everyone, like you want to be better in life, do tongue twisters every day so that you speak very clearly and you have super Olympic level control of your mouth, and take every opportunity you can to speak in front of a group of people. And know that you're not going to die. The chemicals in your body are going to flood it like you're going to die, and you should be running for your life right now. But once you learn to harness that into a focus and turn it back towards the other people, then it becomes an energy you get to use. But a lot of people get hampered by those early school things that happen, and they don't necessarily happen in front of the classroom. Most of the time they happen like this, where you're in a class and it's a group of friends and you do something embarrassing in front of people and they laugh at you, and that shuts you down for standing in front of groups. So I do a lot of teaching too. A lot of the performance techniques I teach are mostly engaged in the process of trying to get yourself through that chemical, physical, emotional, psychological process so that you can use it, because it happens all day long. I know kids. I know people. I have a wife who has anxiety ordering Starbucks. You know, like, like you can feel that when there's a line, especially if there's a line. You know, and they don't have what you planned, and you've planned out exactly what you want. They don't have that, and you have to think of something on the spot. Like that terrifies me. I have a son for whom that terrifies, and he will anxiety order. Like we'll get up to the line and be like, the jalapeno pickle popper. And I was like, what, do you like that? No, I just didn't know what to, I just saw it. I'm like, what do you want? He's like, a turkey sandwich. I'm like, well, let's get a turkey sandwich. But that anxiety is real, and it's important. And the other thing that people need to realize with that anxiety performance of standing up or ordering a latte is that it's not only real, it's good for you. It's a strong superpower. It's a way to have energy when you're done. Like as soon as you flip all that stuff into like, I could kill everyone in this room with my superpower. No, don't go that route. I could. But challenging yourself comfort-wise will make you a stronger human being. Tim Ferriss is a podcaster, and he said to take comfort challenges. One of the ones he recommends is go into a Starbucks and just go into a Starbucks, find a corner, just kicking on the ground for like 30 seconds in a public Starbucks, and people will be like, are you okay? And you're just supposed to say, yeah, I'm just resting for a second. And you do that for like 30 seconds, and then you get up, and you can't bring a friend in with you to watch. You have to do it totally solo, but it will make you a more confident human being. Psychologically speaking, any comfort challenge you can give yourself is going to make yourself better. I take cold showers and do ice baths for the same reason. Because listen, if you take a cold shower in the winter, it's so cold. Even colder up here, I bet. Than Texas. But you take a cold shower, warm world. So like you come out of that cold shower, because you take the hot shower, you're like, oh, I don't want to get out. And I'll still use hot water, but I freeze myself. And those little comfort challenges make you stronger, because you're like banking the ability to overcome adversity later. I tell my students, I say, if you know you're going to face a thing you don't know how to get over, you just have to have a plan for how you're going to, return to the state where you're determined. What are you going to do? So you get disillusioned, or you're scared, or you don't think you can do it. That is guaranteed. There is no getting out of that. You're going to do that over and over and over again. You're going to fail over and over again. But what is not guaranteed is, do you have a plan to what is my process for getting back on track? Do I have a mantra I say, okay, we're going to do this, or, some physicalization? Do you have, but the most important thing is, what is your plan for when you want to do something and be determined at it? I don't know how I got that far into that, but it was good. I enjoyed it.
Can you tell us how you got the part for Dr. McCoy, and how much your voice came into getting that?
I got the part because Vic is my good friend, and I think I looked enough like him. And he knew I was a good actor. I directed Vic in a movie, and he had seen me act on stage. He'd come to one of my plays once, and so he's and he knew my anime work too. But he said he always wanted to do it with friends, and he and I were friends, and so he just basically asked me. So there was no, and he trusted.
Audition or anything
no
like
audition, no. He just trusted that I could do it. And then this is my favorite part about acting as a career, is that then, once I got the role, my job was to watch every episode of Star Trek, right? So I'm like, sorry, I'm working. It's a lot of episodes, and I didn't procrastinate on it, but I got to a point where I was like, because I'd watch and then, see a couple more episodes and watch a couple more, but then I was like, I wanted to finish all of them before we started filming, so I had a day and a half to watch 11 episodes. Which isn't that much, but I just consumed it, and it was awesome. And then once you got on set, as far as finding the character or the voice, once you got on set, it was like this perfect Star Trek puzzle, and the only place you could fit was McCoy. There was no other way to be. And so I didn't really practice it. I knew he was Southern. I kind of picked some of picked out in his intonation some of the words that came out a little more Southern. And then a lot of what you do as an actor is you practice, you rehearse, and then to be a really good actor, you forget about it. You totally forget, you do all this practice and training, and then you just kind of throw it away, and you just let it come out, you let it rip, and hopefully you've done the homework and it's going to show. And it apparently did. The show is successful because everybody on it brought 110%. Everybody, the sound guys, everybody.
It's over now because of the Paramount thing, pretty much?
I wouldn't say it's over. It is.
Is there plans to continue it?
I think the universe works in really interesting ways. I think the fact that Vic and Michelle were invited to the Star Trek Discovery premiere event, I think that says a lot about what I believe the future should be. Because I believe Vic should be in charge of the Star Trek property. There's no limit to Star Trek properties they can make. They can Deep Space Nine it on the side while Discovery's going on. Not exactly Deep Space Nine, but it's the entire universe to explore. So in my mind, that is the right business move for CBS Paramount, and I hope if I keep saying it enough times, they'll eventually hear it.
Well, they should be hearing it from all the fans too, because
They do,
it's
they do, and they're kind of like,
everybody's hand.
they're like,
You can't do that.
yeah, and we love them, and we have to. we do. It is theirs. It's their property, but philosophically and spiritually, it's the fans. So I think the the core fandom, which is going to always breed more fans, is attracted to the philosophy and the intellect and the thinking of the show and the way it was able to portray and comment on current social issues in a way that was literally alien to our Earth so that we could observe it from a different perspective. I think that is something that is missing in the new franchises, but I think the core fans need to be cognizant that the franchise has to compete with other franchises that are doing things on a different level. But in my mind, that doesn't mean you can't do that on another product. You can do both at the same time. A lot of people are saying it's got to be this or this is what it is, and I'm like, I'm a both and guy. Like I'm always talking about Moo, the third way. It's only this way or it's only this way. I'm like, what's the third way? You know, and I used to do little exercises with my kids, have them try to think out the third way. That's what Star Trek does, is gives us interesting problems and then it solves them. And a lot of the problems I see in cinema nowadays aren't very interesting. It's like, oh, you're gonna blow stuff up. You know, and I'm like, that's not that interesting. You know, so to get into the core of humanity and find some interesting problems, that's more fascinating. Yes.
I really liked you in Borderlands 2. I was wondering what it was like working on a video game.
Fire! I played like 5 different characters, Matchstick and Mick Safford. He was an Irish guy, and I finished that. And I did his Irish dialect as like a really cheesy Irish guy, you know, like it was kind of, and then immediately went to Dublin after it came out, and I was like, I just want to apologize right now for my racist interpretation of your culture. But they love it anyway. Working on video games is a lot of fun. That one in particular, the writer was really brilliant and a lot of fun, and he'd like shove you in the booth and be like, I don't know, what would he say here when he's on fire? You know, and be like, I could just say whatever. He's like, yeah, give me some takes, and so you just riff in the booth a lot. And the video games are fun because I played Borderlands 2, and it was like everybody in it is a friend of mine. So it's like, this is a game with all my friends in it. They're all in the little box. So that was kind of fun. But in general, my friends will ruin anime for me, but they don't ruin video games for some reason. If I watch an anime and I can hear a friend, I'm like, if I hear myself in an anime, I can't watch it. I'll be like, oh, this is great. It's a really good anime. Faker, that guy's faking it. I can tell. It's me. That's fake. Because it's hard to trick yourself.
You had said then to help you get into character, you started watching all the Star Treks. Did you realize that some of the guest stars from the original series were coming back? Like the first one had Michael Forrest doing Apollo again.
Oh, yeah,
I thought that was really good.
Yeah, no, the Star Trek brilliance on the producing side from Vic and the team, James Kerwin on down. And
I believe you brought some other guest stars back too that were in the original.
yeah, we painted Lou Ferrigno green, man.
Yeah.
Made him an Orion slave trader.
Right.
It was awesome. No, that was horrible. I was the first AD on that shoot. That was so hard to paint him green every day. And the girl playing the Orion slave girl, I can't remember her name now, Fiona, painting them